What would you do if you were to go to sleep and wake up in a seemingly post-apocalyptic world, to fall asleep in that world and reawaken in your bed and think it was all a nightmare? Introducing our main character, Hazen Nam, a normal high school boy who one day falls asleep to wake up with a bleeding head in a post-apocalyptic world, sitting in a crater with a girl pointing a wooden sword at his face. Before being able to question what's happening, she swings the sword, but doesn't hit him, but instead the zombie behind him. Hazen, after trying to question where he is and what's happening, he runs into his seemingly broken down family clinic to see himself in a mirror and notice he's aged by quite a few years, just to collapse from his head injury and reawaken in his bed to question if it was all a nightmare. To his surprise, the following day there's a new girl who's transferring into his class, and she looks just like the girl from his dream, her name being Yuri Hong. This leads Hazen to question himself if it was really just a nightmare. This comic isn't like your typical post-apocalyptic story. It adds a unique twist, incorporating time travel, mystery, drama, supernatural, and many other genres that you wouldn't typically find in these types of stories. In this apocalyptic world, there are zombies, but there are also things called specters, which are demons that take over bodies whether they are dead or alive, and they can be killed, only temporarily incapacitated, and you can tell if they are specters by looking at them through your phone camera. What makes the situation worse is on full moons, the specter's powers become even stronger, so the survivors have to deal with attacks on a larger scale. Hazen Nam wakes up in this world, but what he's experiencing isn't your regular time travel. When he goes to sleep in his present high school timeline, he wakes up in the future, and vice versa. Early in the story, Hazen will learn that he's actually 7 years in the future. Yuri Hong is the female protagonist, a very secretive and strange girl, who Hazen sees in his dream just to transfer in the next day. She's quiet except for the question she has of, has anyone in this town died and come back to life? The story of Dreamcide revolves around the main character of Hazen and Yuri, and their objective is to try to prevent this future from happening. In order to do this, Yuri has the mission of having to find someone called a Revenant, this person being connected to the demons responsible for having this post-apocalyptic world being overrun by specters and zombies. In order to prevent this future, they must track down the Revenant and torture them into giving out their real name. Only then will they be able to stop this horrible future. Yuri has more to do with this mission than Hazen truly knows. As the story unfolds, we gain truths such as Yuri is actually a witch, which is the reason for her seemingly unfathomable physical capabilities and being able to pull weapons out of nowhere, and the fact that the reason for all this happening is because of her adoptive father, Mystic Hong, who was a part of a cult called Clarism. Dreamside has many attributes to its story, one of the main things being mystery, that being to try to find out who the Revenant is, constantly having suspects for them to turn up empty. Dreamside is like a science experiment, with Hazen using his abilities to wake up in the future when his present body is sleeping in order to see the results of his actions in the past, constantly testing his hypothesis. Hazen uses the information he gathers in the present and future to try to put the puzzle together, constantly changing things such as preventing someone from dying, which had a direct result on the amount of time Yuri spent in K-Town, which was originally 2 weeks, which turned into a year and longer. This would lead into more things involving the butterfly effect. One of the most fascinating things to come out of this ability is something Hazen calls 7-year training, which directly affects him in both the present and the past, such as his memory in the past and future merging, making Hazen mentally older and smarter. In his words, it's almost like he's cheating. As Hazen and Yuri get further into this investigation, the more characters call out Hazen and his changes. Hazen picked up the skills like archery and martial arts, which directly translate to skills in the future, and then his present progresses even faster. Hazen has his changes called out by his friends, his father, and even Yuri, who says every time I see you, it's like you're a different person. Some examples would be Hazen's ability to stay composed under dangerous situations, like being attacked by specter dogs, taking on fully grown adults in fights when he's half their size, and even blackmailing political figures. Another example is Hazen picking up archery for the first time. He goes to sleep and tests his skills in the future. When he wakes up the next day, he tests his skills, and he's already gotten way better at hitting the target with multiple arrows, or being able to solve questions in school due to his future self's memory. What's amazing about Hazen's ability to change things is when he travels to the future, it's almost like things get rewritten, like characters' memories having new things inserted. The most impressive ability, being able to turn humans into what he calls rousers. Rousers being people who have died or are supposed to be dead in the future, but he changes the past to make sure that they're still alive. These people end up gaining a somewhat watered down version of Hazen's ability of seeing the future. Hazen only learns about this after he prevents one of his schoolmates and their fathers from being murdered. The female protagonist, Yuri Hong, she starts off cold and strange, and almost seemingly a character who lacks empathy, and also begins to change as she grows closer to Hazen as the story progresses. Yuri at first not trusting Hazen and acting purely off impulse. At attacking anyone she believes that has a connection to the Revenant, and not thinking things all the way through. As she gets closer to Hazen, her coldness starts to fade as she learns to trust him and get closer to him. I won't spoil the recent chapters, but this change truly shows itself when she's put face to face with Hazen in a gunned down situation, but is unable to truly harm him because of her affection she now has toward him. I think Dreamside does an amazing job of connecting pieces of the story together, things you wouldn't even expect to have a place in the story. Going back to how characters' relationships would be affected, an example being Hazen's relationship with his parents, changing after his father and mother get divorced, and she says he no longer means anything to her. At first, many of us would think she's just a horrible mother, until we learn the true events that take place and lead to this. It's very similar to the story of the character Itachi, taking on the front of a criminal and bad person in his brother's eyes, but in reality he did this to protect his brother and his village. The events of Hazen being disowned by his mother plays a very crucial role in the story, and who's the Revenant. It all connects to the experiments taking place in his family's hospital and why he was disowned. The knowledge of these events being known to both his father and his mother, but Hazen doesn't learn about these until later on in the story when he's in the future. What I really enjoy about reading this comic is watching the characters do their best to solve the mystery of who's the Revenant as they gather allies in the present. On top of this, seeing the results of it in the future. There being times when changes will be minuscule, but there are times when major events occur and flip the script entirely. I don't want to say everything because that would take away from your personal enjoyment if you decide to read this story. When I first read this story, it caused me anxiety and wanting to know what would happen next, because as we dive deeper into the story, we get connected to these characters and start to understand them emotionally. One of the reasons being whether Hazen will truly end up changing the past. There will be times when nothing changes, but there will also be times when characters lose their memories or the situation changes entirely, bringing up things such as how characters like Yuri feel when Hazen doesn't remember their relationship or everything they've gone through together, and vice versa. Dreamside takes you down a roller coaster of ups and downs as you follow the character's journey and investigation to find the Revenant. We simultaneously have to follow the future path of Hazen as he goes through his own journey to find information and looks like a crazy guy who says he needs to take a nap in dire situations. Honestly, sometimes it's really comedic because there's a scene where Hazen takes advantage of his ability and has one of his friends put him in a sleeper hole to make him go to sleep. Throughout the story, Hazen builds up allies, changes the future, and creates many rousers. He goes through mental shock, learning why he has his abilities, and as he sees future realities, they add to his distress just seeing what the outcome could be. Honestly, when I read Dreamside for the first time, I had anxiety just reading it, just wondering what's gonna happen next when I ran out of chapters and how they're gonna tackle their next problem. Going through the emotions of watching Hazen and Yuri grow closer to each other and have developments just to be slapped with more complications. As of right now, Dreamside is ongoing and is approaching about 200 chapters, and I truly hope you guys give this comic a chance. You can read it on Tapas, but there are other places where you can find the chapters, which will be in the description below. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I'll have more videos like this coming out in the future, and I do hope to improve my formatting and writing on this journey, and so hopefully you guys stick with me. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace out.